And welcome back to Boomstick Barbecue. Today, or tonight I should say, it's about 8 o'clock. We're gonna put this on tonight. We have ourselves a Wagyu Brisket from Australia. Just look how beautiful this is. Look at the meat, look at the striations. This is an absolutely gorgeous piece of meat. We are going to smoke this overnight. We are going to use hickory and pecan wood. This thing's ready to go ahead and get the rub on it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to unpackage it. We're going to trim it. We're going to get it ready for the smoker. But just like I said, look at that beautiful color. Look at that beautiful meat. This is going to be something special on Boomstick Barbecue. Okay, so here's this wonderful piece of meat we were talking about. We've gotten it out of its packaging. We went ahead, we've washed it off, we've dried it. It's looking beautiful. So now it's going to be time to trim, as you would need to do with almost any brisket. You do have to trim a little bit with these Wagyus, but you really don't have to trim these as much. Wagyu's fat is a little bit of a different consistency. A matter of fact, you want to make sure this is really cold when you're starting to work with it. This fat will melt some of it with just your body heat, so you really want to make sure that this is cold when you're going to work with it. Now you do need to trim a little bit because some of this stuff we don't really need, but you don't want to trim it too much or you risk overcooking this. This needs a lot of the fat, and one of the gorgeous parts of a Wagyu brisket like this is the extra marbling that you're going to get into it and the extra fat here. So we don't want to ruin it by over trimming, but we do need to trim some of these hard fat pieces out that really aren't going to render down. Like something like this, you can see that they already took the deco out over here that you would get in a normal Packer brisket. That's already taken out over there, so that's good to go. But it does need a little bit of trimming. Stuff like this is going to burn when it smokes. This can come down a little bit. You'll notice there's not too much of a fat cap on this one, but all the fat is inside this meat and it's delicious. We're going to trim a little bit of this extra sinew off. Stuff like this we're going to go ahead and get off. But all in all, we're really not going to trim this way too much. It's already kind of trimmed. This kind of fat, like I said, will melt. I mean, just with touching it too much. So we're going to clean this up a little bit and then we're going to get the rub on. So I'm going to show you how to trim this brisket. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on this sinew here. We really don't want a whole lot of this sinew. Get yourself a sharp knife. $14 at Walmart. I use a fish fillet knife. It works great. Just make sure you sharpen it. So really what we want to do is get a lot of this stuff. It's not really going to taste that good. It's not going to be an end product. There's a little bit of fat in here. Let me just take a quick look. It's not very deep. We're going to get a little bit of this extra hard fat out right here. Just a little. It's kind of like I'm a surgeon. I'm a barbecue surgeon. I'm like a meat surgeon here. Look at this, you know. Nurse, I need suction right in here. Nah, I'm just messing. Some of this stuff, see, it's kind of flappy here. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. It's a little flappy. We don't want all of that, but we want a little bit of it. The more you have hanging off the meat, the more it's going to burn. Remember, this is going to go on there for a really long time. And, you know, this all looks good. I'm going to leave all that on. That's really soft fat. This, you know, it's got a little bit of a flap, so you really want to pull that. Like I said, anything that is kind of fatty is kind of going to, you know, anything that's kind of just hanging is going to kind of burn on the brisket. So this right here is another good thing. So, I mean, this fat here, you squeeze it, it doesn't really want to move much, versus this fat, see how malleable it is? That kind of stuff we want to keep. Any of this hard fat doesn't really render down super well, but you don't want to take all of it. So I left some on. You can see it goes around. We'll get to that on the other side. This fat, that fat feels good. I'm not going to take that. We got a little more of this sinew here. I'm going to clean up the side a little bit as well, and I'll show you how to do that. So there's that. Let me take a quick look on the other side here and flip. So this side doesn't look too bad. Most of this looks good. We got a couple hangers. We'll go ahead and we'll just kind of clean this side up just a little. If you get a little bit of the meat, don't worry about it. Just try not to take too much of it. If you get a little bit of the meat, don't worry about it. Just try not to take too much. This all looks pretty good to me. It feels pretty good. This feels pretty good. I'm not seeing a whole lot of sinew. There's just a little bit. I'll just kind of trim that just a tad. Like I said, these Wagyu briskets, you really don't want to trim too much because you paid all that money for all that meat, and it's really good. Now right here, this is where the point and the flat actually meet. So you can see the flat here. This is the point. This is the, well, lean and moist, I guess they could call it. And let me tell you a little secret. It's moist because there's a ton of fat in it. And here it is. But you don't necessarily need it all because a lot of this fat's going to be hard fat. But I don't want to take it all the way out. But there's a little bit of extra there that we don't really need. And you can kind of feel, you can kind of look in there. I mean, you can kind of see right in there how big it is. So we just want to trim it ever so slightly because a lot of this fat won't quite render down all the way. But this Wagyu fat is different, so you want to leave a little bit in there, and especially right here where the point and the flat come together, because that's holding it all together. And that right there, when you're done your brisket, you're going to move it like this, and this stuff right here is just going to jiggle. It is just going to jiggle like Mama June. I mean, this is going to be good. So I think the trimming's getting pretty good. I'm going to finish up the trimming, and then I'll show you the rub I'm going to use, and we'll go ahead and throw it on there. Okay, so we went ahead, we trimmed everything about as good as it's going to be anyway. Now it's going to be time to go ahead and put the rub on. So I created another rub for this today. I'll put the full ingredients list in the description, but this really mainly starts as a 50-50 salt and pepper, fresh ground pepper and salt, about a cup of each. There's some cayenne, some cumin, some paprika, sugar, chili powder, just a whole bunch of goodness right there. But really, the way they do it in Texas is 50-50 salt and pepper. Everything else I did was just pretty much gravy. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get it on. So you have one clean hand and you have one dirty hand. So I use yellow mustard. You can use Worcestershire sauce if you want. I think I'm saying that right, Worcestershire. I don't know, it's one of the two. So we rub the mustard on. Remember, you're not gonna taste this mustard later. It just helps to make sure that the rub sticks. So now we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna start putting this rub on, and we're gonna be liberal with it because we really want a good crust on this big piece of meat. So we're gonna just put it all over there. We're gonna let it spill over sides. We'll clean this up later. We're gonna rub it on nicely. You wanna make sure you don't really over season any like holes you get like that, but you do wanna make sure you get a nice even rub on here. And you can be pretty darn liberal. This brisket is actually relatively small when it's 10 pounds. But it can take a hell of a lot of rub. And that looks good already, so flip her over. Try to keep the clean hand clean. And we're gonna do the same thing on this side. A little bit of mustard. Move that around. So the mustard's on, back with the rub. We're just gonna start putting that on there. Just sprinkle it all over the place. You want to cover it and you want to rub it in. So once you have the rub on there, it's about ready to go on. I'm going to actually put this in the fridge a little bit. It's still a little early. I'm going to put this thing on at like 11 o'clock midnight because I have a party tomorrow around 1 o'clock-ish, so I want this to kind of cook overnight. I have a party cue ready to go that's going to maintain the temperature for me. We're going to stick this in the fridge. We're going to get the fire going, and we will show you when we're ready to put this on. We'll see you soon. Okay, it's about 11 o'clock at night. We're going to go ahead and put this brisket on. I got the party cue down here. It's going to take care of it for me overnight, so I don't have to worry about it too much. Just in case I have this thing, it's going to beep and wake me up. Or I should say, rather, probably wake my wife up, who will wake me up. But anyway, it's time to put this thing on. So let's open her up. And that is good. So we're going to take it like this with the point up. I'm going to take it, put it in here. Move it around. Kind of get the point all the way in the back if we can here. And that thing fits perfectly on here. Let's make sure the thermometer's not touching it. And we should be good. Oh, wait. Let's put the temperature probe in. Put it in right there, like so. Get it into the thick part of the meat. And now we will see this thing in the morning. Well, here we are. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. And the brisket is getting close. It's looking really good. It's got a good jiggle to it. The flat just needs to get a little bit more done. And then we'll be ready to pull this thing off, put it in the towel, and put it in the cooler. Okay. We have ourselves a finished brisket. Look at that. That looks good to me. Took about 11 hours. Now let's see if I can get this thing off just right. And what we're going to do here, we're going to bring it right over here. We're going to wrap it in foil. And then we'll put some blankets around it. We're going to stick it in the cooler. But just take a good look at that. Just look at that. It's got a good bark on it. It's got, you know, just a good jiggliness to it. This is what you want a brisket to look like. So I'm going to get it wrapped up. I'm going to get it in the cooler, and I'll see you when it's time to slice. So here we got the brisket that we cooked since last night. We're going to slice it and we see how we did. The bark looks really good, feels really good, but let's take a quick look in there at what we got. And look at that. Nice and juicy. That looks good to me. Oh, falling apart already. Well, if you like this video, please share, please subscribe for more videos like this. But thanks for tuning in to Boomstick Barbecue.